everyone. Welcome to another episode of Soul Talks with Alka. And today I have an amazing woman here with me. I read a quote recently. It says that cancer affects your body, but it can't go to your soul, to your heart, and to your mind. This woman is an epitome of that. I'm going to, with pleasure, welcome Melissa Vazquez. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So when I got to know you, I had no idea, right? Mm-hmm. Until we were going through the process, and you wrote a letter. Mm-hmm. And when I read the letter, I literally had tears in my eyes, because never did you say anything about it, never was. So first, tell me a little bit about you.
So I'm a teacher and I teach high school. I'm married and I have 3 kids.
Yes.
I've been married for 10 years and our children are 7, 4, and 3. I have a daughter and 2 boys.
Nice.
Layla is 7, Landon is 4, and Evan is 3.
Nice. When were you diagnosed?
So I was diagnosed in April
of this year?
2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you mind if I ask you how old you are?
35.
Okay.
Yeah. So about a year ago, I really just had a gut feeling that something was wrong.
A gut feeling?
Yeah. I just knew, I knew I needed to go get checked out. I had the slightest bit of pain. So I went to my doctor and he asked me if there was a family history. And there's a questionable family history of breast cancer. My mom had a sister that passed from breast cancer, but she was diagnosed when she was 13. She passed when she was 13.
Oh,
so
my.
when I tell doctors that, their jaws are usually on the floor and they can't believe it. So this was such a long time ago, I feel like, I don't know, perhaps she was misdiagnosed. So working on the assumption that maybe there was a family history, my doctor sent me to get a mammogram.
Okay.
So I had the mammogram in February, and a few weeks later I received a phone call and the doctor said, you need to go in for an MRI. And I hung up the phone and I looked at my husband and I said, I have breast cancer. And he was very positive and he said, maybe they just need clearer images, maybe everything is okay. And I said, no, I'm telling you right now, I have breast cancer. And I went in for the MRI. A couple weeks later, I get a phone call, you have to go in for a biopsy. So the biopsy was at the end of April. I'm a teacher. I was on spring break. We were, going to the trampoline park. We were, going out for pizza, ice cream, enjoying the spring weather. And then spring break ends with a birthday celebration for my son who turned 4. A couple days later, I went for the biopsy. And the very next day they called and they said, the first thing he said to me was, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but it came back positive.
And what was your reaction?
I started crying, but I tried to hold it together because I needed to ask him questions. Mm-hmm. But I was in a panic. When he called me, I was pulling out of school and I just turned right back into the parking lot and I pulled into a parking space and I just sat there and cried and asked questions and got the information that I needed, and he recommended a doctor. And then it was a very quick phone call, and then I hung up and immediately I called my sister and she could barely understand me. My husband was out of the country, so she was the first.
I know he travels a lot,
Yeah,
right?
he does. I think he was in Amsterdam at the time. And I called my sister and she could barely understand what I was saying, but she was the first phone call. I couldn't call my husband. I couldn't get in touch with him. And I told her and she just tried to calm me down, and then I went home. And my parents were actually meeting me that night, and my dad was there, and I just cried, and he hugged me.
And when you saw your kids after that news, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously things are different the night before, and things are different today. Yep. What was your first reaction when you saw them?
I mean, I tried to let it all out before I picked them up from school. I mean, I got this news leaving school and having to go pick them up. So I tried to just pull it together for them. I didn't want them to see me upset. I didn't have any information, and plus the boys are so little, they wouldn't have understood anyway. Mostly for my daughter, I wanted to just put on a brave face. I didn't want her to know anything was wrong. I didn't know what I would even say to her at that point. And I wanted to make sure that anything I said from that point forward, that it was well thought out, and I didn't want to say anything in the moment. And you know, that was it. We just kind of dealt with the news, and it became a series of doctor's appointments from that point forward. And then 12 days later, I was in surgery.
Wow. Did you give them a really tight hug that day? Like, all these thoughts as a
Yeah.
mom
Yeah.
are turning through your head, right?
Right.
Like, what's going to happen to me? What's going to
Yeah.
happen to them? What's going to... Oh.
It was a lot of when I got the news, I really thought of my daughter, and it's like, she's 7 years old and now her mom has breast cancer. Like, what does this mean for her?
Right.
So that was tough for me. You know, the boys were so little. You just start imagining and fearing the worst, and
Right.
thinking about your children growing up without a mother. So that was hard for me, and especially like what this would mean for my daughter's future. Thank you.
Well, when you spoke to Damien, how was he? Were you able to speak to him that night?
I spoke to him that night. My text messages went through. He was able to call me. And it was just, you know, he was very matter of fact. Okay, you know, when I get home, we'll deal with it. So he got home, I think the next day, and I met with the breast surgeon. And at that point, we actually thought what I was dealing with was DCIS, which is what they refer to actually as stage 0 cancer.
Okay.
Basically, the best way that I can describe it is it's contained to the milk duct. So it's these like calcifications, and they don't know which ones will turn into cancer, and which ones won't. And that's really what I thought we were dealing with. And then when Damien came home the next day, we went to the breast surgeon, and he went through everything with me, and he said, so it's stage 1. And I just broke down. I was like, what do you mean? And that was brand new information. So then for me, it was like we were processing all over again, this new information.
Did you get on the internet? Were you one of those people who just said, you know what, I need to read up everything on stage 1?
I did. And it was also not just stage 1, but the type of cancer. There's, you know, without getting like too, you know, scientific, cancers respond to different things. And, you know, it was a question of like, does this cancer respond to hormones, or does it not? Because that would affect treatment. So I educated myself just enough to feel like I knew what the doctors were talking about, but I wasn't going crazy on the internet.
Right.
It was just a lot to take in.
So what did the doctor say as a course of treatment for you?
Well, initially, there was a question of, you know, what we can do is either a mastectomy or we can do a lumpectomy. And I sat on it for a few days, and I really didn't know what to do. And there was also this question of, am I, you know, BRCA positive? So I had to get that test done as well. And if I was BRCA positive, I would have done the double mastectomy, because that would have meant that I had that gene. Okay. But I wasn't working with all the information yet. So we thought about it, we talked about it, and I really felt comfortable just doing the lumpectomy and then waiting to see the results of the BRCA test. Okay. And then maybe down the line considering a mastectomy. And I made my decision. I told the doctor. I met with the plastic surgeon. And then a few days later, the breast surgeon called me back, and he said, we have to talk. I got your images.
Oh boy.
And when he got
when you pick up that phone, so now this is the 3rd time, right?
Yeah.
You're getting that phone call.
Yep.
When you're picking up that phone, are you saying, oh God?
It was such anxiety. Every time the phone rang and I could tell it was someone from the hospital, it was just like my stomach was in knots.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, what more information are you giving me?
Right. What now?
And so I received this phone call on the way to driving my daughter to dance. So she's in the back seat. I get this phone call, and he's like, we need to talk. And he tells me, I'm sitting at a red light, and you know, he tells me, I really need to take back my recommendation about the lumpectomy, because I got your images and you have DCIS all over your left side. This is just going to turn into biopsy after biopsy after biopsy for the rest of your life, and I have to recommend a mastectomy. So here I was, set in my decision about a lumpectomy. I felt like really good about that choice, and then it was like my choice was taken away from me completely. And now I had to process this all over again. And I started crying, and my daughter was in the back seat, and she was just asking me like, Mommy, what's wrong? You were so happy a minute ago. What happened? So I just told her everything was fine. Don't worry about it. I just have to talk to Daddy about something. And then I dropped her at dance and went home and just started to process this information all over again and what this was going to now mean and how everything was going to change.
Now when you're processing it, what is going through your mind? What's going through Damien's mind? What are you guys talking about? Like, what changes did you make, if anything? How did you recalibrate, right? Because it has to be...
Honestly, Damien wasn't doing a lot of talking. I think that he was processing very silently. And I think for him, it was a shock. Because for me, I knew. I had a gut feeling from December. And now we're getting into May. And it's like I had been processing. I was sort of like waiting for this. I knew deep down, like, for months already. Yeah. So I think for him, he was like positive everything's going to be okay. And now here it's like blow after blow. And he was just processing very silently. And it was just very quiet in our house in those days leading up to the surgery.
Right. Well, because both of you don't want to discuss anything in a way, right?
Right.
Because you don't know what's going to happen. So then when was your surgery?
The day after Mother's Day.
Oh.
Yeah.
So how was that Mother's Day?
It was pretty rough. We went out to breakfast in the morning with the kids and my mom, and I didn't want to do like a big thing. All the kids wore shirts that said, "I'm with Mama." So we just went out to breakfast, and that was really all we could do because for a mastectomy, the day before the surgery, you have to get all these injections, these like dye injections. And I had to actually go to the hospital that afternoon and receive some injections, so we could really only spend some time in the morning before we had to go to the hospital. And then it was just a quiet night at home.
And what was going through your mind that night? Did you and Damien talk at all about anything, or?
It was just like a lot of anxiety about the unknown and, what to expect and what this, how much pain would I be in afterward and like, what would this do to me mentally? And so it was just, just a lot of those like conversations between the two of us, like, how is this going to, like, all the what ifs, Yeah. What if this happens? What if that happens? I was also just really, any surgery when you're put under, that's just scary. Yeah, so, exactly. I was worried about that as well.
Yeah. And now you go through the surgery, you come back from surgery. What is the talk that you're having with your kids when you're going, right? Because there's something you have to tell.
Yeah.
Tell the kids that something's going to happen.
So the boys, again, like they were so little. Evan was only 2.5. Landon just turned 4.
Right.
So, I just told him, Mommy has to go to the doctor. I have a boo-boo over here. And the doctor's going to fix me. And then for Layla, she's smart. And she requires more explanation. And the night before the surgery, she said to me, and I never used the cancer word with her until I knew everything was okay. I didn't want her to know that word. I didn't want her to associate it with anything. And she said to me, what do you have? What's the boo-boo? And I said, it's just a boo-boo that the doctor has to fix. And she goes, but I'm not like the boys. I'm not little. You don't have to use the word boo-boo with me. Like, tell me what you have.
Oh my God, she sounds like she's 20.
She does.
I'm not little, Mommy.
Right. She wanted more of an explanation. And I said, Layla, I can barely understand this myself, so it's hard for me to explain it to you. And she said, well, this is what I want you to do. Tomorrow when you see the doctor, I want you to tell him to explain it to you so that you can come home and explain it to me.
Okay, Mommy.
And I was like, okay. She sent me there with a homework assignment. And I said, okay, Layla, I'll ask the doctor. So I'd waited to actually tell her that it was cancer once we knew everything was okay.
Right. So when you come home, now how long were you in the hospital?
One night.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long was the recovery period when you came out?
After the surgery?
After the surgery. At home.
Months.
Yeah.
I required physical therapy, because I had no use of my left side.
Oh, okay.
Because you can't lift your arm after the surgery. So when you don't use that part of your body for so long, now when you go to use it, you know, I couldn't even lift my arm. So I actually had to go to physical therapy so that I could, you know, recondition that arm to start using it again. So that was, I think, about a month. And then after that, I had to continue seeing the breast surgeon, seeing the plastic surgeon, and then reconstruction was 3 months later.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So now, during this process, right? You're having to, obviously, you're a mother of 3, so it's not easy to raise 3 kids if you don't have a health challenge.
Right.
Right? You have a health challenge, and you're a mother of 3 kids. So how did you? Because I mean, I saw your organization skills, so I know what they are, but I don't know if they were before also the same way, or did you recalibrate those to like the next level, because they were the next level?
Honestly, my mom helped out so much. Like during that whole process, I felt like I was unable. I had one arm. It's hard parenting with 2 arms, let alone you know, now being down in arms. Like my mom helped me so much, but like, you know, I had to let a lot of things go. And you know,
that hard?
It was hard. It was very hard. But like even just, it was hard. I mean, Evan was 2.5. I rocked him to sleep every night. And then to tell him, your baby, you can't lay on me because I have a boo-boo here, and I couldn't rock him to sleep, like that was hard for me. Yeah. So I didn't care about the laundry not getting done. Like I didn't care that my room was a mess, that the house was in disarray. Like I couldn't rock my baby to sleep, you know, because he would want to lay on me on this side and I couldn't. Yeah. So, you know, I would say to him, okay, let's lay in bed, you can lay next to me, and then he would fall asleep next to me. So I just had to kind of readjust. Like I didn't want their entire life to be disrupted by this, but obviously, you know, some things needed to change for a little while.
Yeah. And when you finally told Leela what it was about, what was her reaction?
She asked a lot of questions. She worries a lot about getting sick. I think I made her into a little bit of a germaphobe. So she had a lot of questions about, you know, am I going to get cancer because you had it? You know, what does this mean now when I get bigger? And I just told her, you know, you're lucky in a sense that this happened to me, because now when you're older, your doctors are going to make sure that you're fine. Like they're going to make sure that they're checking up on you from a very early age.
Yes.
And I was negative for BRCA, which was a big relief, because I felt like then I couldn't have passed that to her.
Right.
So.
Thank God. So, and does she, now when the kids are older, right? Well, not older, this just happened.
Right.
So how are the kids with you? Are they tender with you? Or is it different? How's Damien? Like everybody's dynamics change a little bit, right? Including your own.
Yeah.
Because now you look at life just a little bit differently.
Right.
Because it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
And so how has that changed for you, for the whole household?
You know, sometimes I'll catch myself in the, like if I'm getting frustrated and you know, when the toys are not picked up, and you know, or like little things are, you know, the kids aren't like settling down, and like I'll find myself like getting frustrated, but then I take a step back and it's like I'm lucky to have this moment, you know, like I'm lucky to be here to be frustrated about the toys on the floor. So every once in a while I try to like check myself and, you know, think about like this is a blessing. Like the chaos in this house is a blessing right now.
Yeah. Did you ever think of going for therapy? Did you find that?
It's something that I'm considering.
You are considering.
Because I just, you know, I said to Damien and to my family, I feel like everything happened so quickly. We found out that the biopsy was positive, and I was in surgery 12 days later. I very much took on the role of like, this is fine, everything's gonna be fine, let's just deal with it. And it was okay, I have to go to this doctor's appointment, I have to do this, I have to do that. And I took no time. There wasn't time for me to process it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until like months later, and then I was left with, you know, the scars and, you know, seeing what had been done. And then it was like, okay, you know, this is hard. And I have to process this all over again in a different way.
So did the doctor, a lot of times doctor after surgery will put you on an antidepressant or give you some sort of medication. Mm-hmm. Did the doctors do that with you as well?
No, I don't remember. I mean, when they diagnosed me, the doctor asked, you know, like, do you want something for anxiety? But after, I don't think that they.
Okay. Did they ever recommend going to a therapist?
I received a lot of information from the nurses at the cancer center about support groups and things like that. But to me, I mean, we caught this so early that I didn't need chemo. I didn't need radiation.
Yes.
So I felt like that wasn't my place. I didn't want to walk into a group of women who were struggling with losing their hair and losing weight and then walk in and say, you know, oh, hi, I had stage 1, you know, nice to meet you all. Like, I didn't feel comfortable doing that. Like, I feel like I have a good enough support system with my husband and my sisters and my mom and my friends that I didn't think that I needed that.
Did you change anything, like make a will, or you know, a lot of times when you get into that mode of all of a sudden where you know, you're young, you don't think of life's challenges, and I talk about making a will all the time for parents with kids. But did you get in that certain adrenaline mode that, you know what, I need to take care of things? And
I mean, I had started one a while ago, and I definitely was updating things along the way, because you start to think about, you know, if this goes south, what's going to happen?
Yeah. And what are discussions with you like now? So your personal life, right? And you don't have to answer. Obviously, going through your own feelings. So you're angry sometimes. You're upset sometimes. It's to why me? Why is this happening to me? And Damien saying, hey, it's happening to all of us, right? So was there disagreements between both of you throughout this process?
No, honestly, there wasn't. Damien was amazing. He was supportive. Once I finally got him talking again, he was very supportive and just basically told me, you know, it was a hard summer to feel like I'm not whole. It was hard to get dressed every morning. And there was just a lot of like support, like, this doesn't matter to me. Like, this, you know, this is not why I married you. Like, he's so good.
But you know what, everybody, that helps, right?
It does.
When you have that unconditional love, that helps you get through that whatever speed bump, so to speak, because you have so much that you're battling. And if you were to give advice to women, right, who are watching this show, women who have kids, women who don't have kids, what would you say to them?
I think one of the things for me that I struggle with sometimes, especially given my position where we caught it very early, I got very lucky. The prognosis was so good. Even my oncologist said, like, when she got my report, the worst thing about this report is that it says you had cancer. Everything else is good. My prognosis was so good. So to me, it was a struggle between feeling lucky and grateful and blessed that I followed my gut and I got checked out, and now I have this really good prognosis. But also mourning what I lost and feeling like that's okay to be upset that I lost all of this, because when you have a mastectomy, you lose a lot of yourself, and not just physically, but just like the comfort of feeling like, oh yeah, I'm a healthy individual, you know, and now I always have to wonder, you know, will there be a recurrence?
Right.
So I would say just know that it's okay to feel both of those things. You can feel lucky that you're doing well and that your prognosis was good, but you can also be upset about the things that you lost, and you shouldn't feel like you can't mourn that loss because you were one of the lucky ones that caught it at stage 1 or didn't need chemo.
Yeah, and grief takes, we were talking about this with somebody else, like grief takes, you know, at every different moment, the grief's different, right? So it's not just about, it's the next time you have another situation, you're like, oh, I can't do this, right? Or did your energy level change?
Yeah, I mean, I think just a lot of things changed. It was just each day it was just emotionally, you know, even today, like I wake up in the morning and still it is the first thing that I think about. And I'm still in disbelief sometimes that I had a mastectomy at 35. Like that, it still just kind of blows my mind. So I just feel like every day it's like, you know, I look at it a little bit differently depending on the day, but it's like an emotional journey, really.
So that's how you basically in life also do it then.
Yeah.
Right? You do it, so everybody has a different way of coping, and yours happens to be that. But it seems like your support group is also phenomenal.
Yeah.
Right? You have a great mom, you have a great sister, you have a great husband, which of course you're blessed for that as well.
I am.
And so that's great. So Melissa is giving you a lot of obviously shared a very personal story, but also given you some really good advice as to what you should do if you're in any sort of a tough life circumstance, right? If you know of someone who you think can benefit from that, and if you feel like you need to share this, please share it, because you never know who will Melissa's story resonate with. We don't know who we can make a difference with, and that is why we are here at Soul Talks with Alka, because we want to share with you, and we want you to pass these stories along, because these women are amazing. They're here, they're sharing their stories, they're opening up their hearts, and they're coming to you so that you can say that, you know what, you can come out as a winner just like they are. With that, we want to thank you for watching Soul Talks with Alka. Please like the page, please subscribe to the channel, and thank you for tuning in.